Hey, John.
Hey, how are you, Peter?
We got a small crowd for now, but I will keep admitting, assuming people will keep showing up.
Okay.
Just to let you guys know, we have books. Information will come out in the next week or two. If you're interested, we're doing a joint chapter minor league game, Labor Day weekend, September 4th in Scranton, with Philly, with Harrisburg, and with the Williamsport chapters. It's actually a double header. And so you'll get some information on that if you're interested in going. And then our Orioles game is going to be the last Saturday in September against the Rangers. So we're working on that soon too. Don't forget to sign up for the Summer of SABR if you get a chance.
Yeah, sign up for the Summer SABR.
Summer of SABR, $35 for SABR members. And
if you give to the 50 at 50 campaign, you get a free registration for Summer SABR.
So I'll let Dr. John, I know he's been a SABR member forever. He's on our board here at the BBRC, retired professor, and we'll let him take it away. This is being recorded, so if anybody who came late or misses it, it'll be up on the SABR site in a few days. Go ahead, John.
All right, thanks, Peter. Yeah, SABR member forever. Actually, my first SABR convention was in Paramus, New Jersey in the 1970s. So I guess I could say SABR member forever. Let me just touch on how this topic came about. A few years ago, Rob Garrett, SABR member, encouraged me to make a presentation at NINE. NINE is a conference in Arizona every year, focusing on culture and baseball. And I suggested maybe Jersey City, my hometown, and the reception they gave Jackie Robinson and Jackie Robinson's performance in that game in 1942. He said, that'd be great. So I presented that. And then Bill Nolan sent out a request for articles for the Jackie book. And I put into words what I had said in NINE, and I put the article down, and it's appeared. And this is a great book, SABR book. You'll really learn a lot about Jackie because there's some things that I never knew that people write about in this. So I would encourage all SABR members. And the article I wrote is also in this. Now, I didn't think much of that game after I wrote the article, but then I got a call from my brother in Ogden, Utah, and he says, guess what? They're talking about the first game Jackie Robinson ever played, and they're talking about it on the CBS Sunday morning show, and there was a particular event in that game that heightened everyone's interest. And then I got an email from Willie Weinbaum, who's a digital journalist and a writer for ESPN, who wrote something between the lines back in 1996 about Jackie. And he's got an article coming up about that first game in Jersey City. And again, there's a particular event that really heightened the interest. So with that kind of as a background, I'll start by talking a little bit about Jersey City. I don't know how many of you have been to Jersey City, but it's right across the river from the Hudson, or right across the river from Lower Manhattan. And if you've gone through the Holland Tunnel, you've been in Jersey City. It used to be a major rail terminus because there were no tunnels under the river. So the trains would stop in Jersey City and you take the ferry over to Lower Manhattan. In 1917, Frank Hague became mayor of Jersey City. Frank, I am the law, Hague. And Hague was crooked. He was a big city boss. Jersey City wasn't a big city, but he had all the trappings of a big city boss. Kickbacks galore from every contract the city let out. And he also, every New Year's Day, got a little gift from every municipal employee. He had a penthouse in Jersey City, Park Avenue, a house on the Jersey Shore, and also one in Florida. But Hague was somewhat popular. And because I just mentioned I am the law, remember now the 20s and the 30s, you had the mobs, the Anastasia gang in New York, you had Dutch Schultz in Newark, and here's Jersey City right between them. And it really doesn't have any significant crime or mob figures. And that's because Hague really kind of emphasized law and order. He also provided medical care, and he built this wonderful Jersey City Medical Center. And when I was playing a ball, I was catching without a mask, caught a bow tip on my nose, broke my nose, blood gushing all over the place. And I marched up to the Jersey City Medical Center, took care of me, no charge. He also was big on education. My high school was built during the Hague regime. He also realized that Jersey City citizens love baseball. And he was a big FDR supporter. And when FDR became president, Hague was able to get a contract, a WPA contract, to build Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. And the Southwest, right overlooking Newark Bay, now did stand Roosevelt Stadium. And then Albany was having problems in the International League, and they moved to Jersey City. So in 1937, the Jersey City Giants started playing at Roosevelt Stadium. Okay, so now let's kind of fast forward to 1945. And now we've got Branch Rickey signing Jackie Robinson, first black, get a contract in what was then termed organized baseball. And guess where Jackie is being assigned for the following year? Montreal, played for the Montreal Royals, and their opening game is in Jersey City. Now, Hague, I'm not sure if he was a real civil rights advocate, but Hague knew, or at least realized, that this was going to be a major event. So he goes all out and really puts a lot of fanfare and beginning of the game. And in fact, there's a biography by Jimmy Breslin of Branch Rickey, a short little biography. And somehow he captured the following scene. The game began at 3:00. And this is what Rickey says what happened around 2:30 that day. At 2:30, the fans were thrilled by a marching band that came in from a right field gate and played "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Everyone bellowed in song. Next, a gate in center field opened to reveal what appeared to be the mayor being burned at the stake. The hot sunlight exploding on his diamond thickpin in his tie enveloped Hague in a champagne-colored flame. He was a magnificent sight. Blue-gray eyes sparkled under a spanking new hat atop his bald head. He had a dark blue double-breasted suit that was just in the hands of a fine tailor. The crowd stilled for the national anthem. Then Hague marched across the new sod to his box seat behind first base. He greeted Branch Rickey and other notables and then sat in glory. When Robinson was announced playing second base, the crowd cheered mightily. Were they thrilled to see the debut of the first black player in organized baseball? Probably not. They realized Hague wanted them to give Jackie a rousing welcome. Well, Jackie lives up to the hype in that game. In his first time at bat, he makes out, he grounds out. And as his second time at bat, there are two runners on base. And Robinson drills a line drive down the left field line over the fence, a 3-run home run in his second at bat in organized baseball. Now, it's interesting, he didn't hit any home runs in spring training with the Royals, but in his first game, he hits a home run. And as I said, there are two runners on base, and the two runners round bases and head into the dugout. But as Jackie comes around third base, George Shotgun Schuber, left-hand hitting outfielder with Montreal, later played for the Dodgers, a good hitter, comes up to home plate and shakes Jackie's hand. And the next day, in papers around the country, this picture, you can see Jackie being greeted by Schuber, and nothing was really made of that. It appeared in the papers the next day, but no one really talked about any significance of a white player, white teammate shaking Jackie Robinson, his black teammate's hand. Jackie went on to have a great game. By the way, there is one individual who is still alive from that game. Larry Miggins is now 95 years old, and he was playing third base. And as I said to you, Willie Weinbaum did a story. He interviewed Miggins for his story, and Miggins was told play back at third because Robinson seems to be a dead puller. He didn't know much about Robinson. They didn't really know what kind of hitter he was, but in batting practice he was pulling the ball. So they played back, and of course Jack just played into Jackie's one of his great skill sets, bunting, and he laid down 2 base hits, 2 bunt singles, and also got another hit. So Robinson went 4 for 5 with a home run, plus 2 steals. And then the statistic I like the best of all, he induced 2 walks by the Jersey City pitchers. I mean, you've probably seen pictures. I've actually saw Jackie play in person. But the way he used to dance, pigeon-toed off of first base or third base, and he just would steal home. Can you imagine today with the shifts going on at third base and at shortstop? Robinson was ever at third base, he'd steal home. We really miss Jackie Robinson, the type of excitement Jackie Robinson brought to a baseball game. Maybe there are a couple of players. I guess Baltimore with Mullins. Mullins is an exciting player. And I like this guy that plays for Miami, Jazz Chisholm. Okay, so that's Jackie's performance in the first game, and it's really, really a great success. Ricky's excited. There's quite a crowd that greets Jackie after the game outside of Roosevelt Stadium. Interesting, the next day, George Shotgun Schuber hits 3 home runs. They said, why didn't you do that on the first day? He said, I didn't want to upstage Jackie. So Robinson, I thought since we're the Baltimore SABR chapter, I'd touch a little bit on what kind of reception Jackie got in Baltimore, because the Orioles obviously are a minor league team in the International League, competitor to the Jersey City Giants. And on August, in late April of that month, the Royals come to Baltimore for a 4-game series. Saturday night, doubleheader on Sunday, and game on Monday. And interesting enough, Frank Shaughnessy, who I believe was the president of the International League, he suggests to Ricky that maybe Robinson shouldn't play in Baltimore, the southernmost city. Ricky realizes Robinson's got to play everywhere if this experiment's going to work. So Robinson does play in Baltimore, and the reception is not good. There's a lot of comments from the fans. Somebody calls them the Midnight Express, look at the ink at second base. Rachel Robinson says after the game, first game, that she never heard such comments since they left Florida. Jackie does well, though, over those 4 games. He goes 5 for 13, steals a couple of bases. And it actually is a success because he has played in the southernmost city. And by the way, for the Sunday doubleheader, the Baltimore Afro-American estimated that there were 10,000 very well-behaved Black fans in the audience at Memorial Stadium. Okay, I thought I'd just touch a little bit on Robinson and the Giant-Dodger rivalry, and then finish up with Jackie returns to Jersey City 10 years after his debut, and I'd finish up with that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the rivalry. The Giants and the Dodgers, there's always no love between the two teams, but it got exasperated in 1948. Leo DeRocha becomes the manager of the New York Giants. Now, DeRocha, as many of you who are kind of aware of Jackie's debut, when he came up with the Dodgers in spring training, supposedly there was a petition of some of the Dodger players that they didn't want to play with Jackie. And Robinson and DeRocha gets the team together, and tells them he doesn't care what color Jackie Robinson is, as long as he helps them win ball games. And that kind of stifles any kind of problems with the Dodgers. Uh, but DeRocher isn't the manager in 1947 because he hangs out with certain undesirables. So Happy Chandler, the commissioner, says to says to DeRocher, "You're banned from baseball for 1947." He comes back in 1948. By the way, the Dodgers did win the pennant, but lost the World Series to the Yankees in 1947. And then in 1948, he comes back as manager of the Dodgers, and they don't do so well. And there's a lot of stories about whether or not Rickey pulled something over on Stoneham, or whether Stoneham wanted DeRocher all the time. But in the middle of July, DeRocher becomes the manager of the Giants. Now, DeRocher was great as a bench jockey, and Robinson became one of his targets, and also the whole Dodger team. We all are aware that Rickey had Jackie turning the other cheek in 46 and 47, and that changes in 48, especially with DeRocher over at the Giants. I think that this is kind of an interesting story about Robinson and the feud with the Giants. 1955. Giants are playing the Dodgers in Ebbets Field, and Magley's pitching for the Giants, Erskine's pitching for the Dodgers. Now, Magley had this great curveball and could keep the ball on the lower outside portion of the plate. And to set that curveball up, he would pitch close to the hitters. And in pitching close to the hitters, he decks Roy Campanella in the second inning of that game. And Campanella goes sprawling, almost hit in the head with the Magley fastball. Well, Robinson and Dodgers take exception to that. And so in the bottom of the fourth inning, Magley's pitching and Robinson's up, and Jackie lays a bunt down the first baseline. Magley knows exactly what Robinson intends. If he comes over and fields the bunt, he'll knock him down. And if he doesn't field the bunt and goes to first base, he'll also knock Magley down. So what does Magley do? Nothing. He just stands on the mound, lets Whitey Lockman field the ball, and he flips it to Davy Williams. And as Williams catches the ball, he's greeted by Robinson at first base, and Robinson sends Williams sprawling. Now, Williams had back problems, but this just exacerbates his back problems. He actually finished the game, but he didn't. After that 1955 season, he was pretty much through. Now, it's Giants' turn to retaliate. So they get together in their dugouts, and there's a lot of stories that go on about what happened in the dugout. But Alvin Dark takes it upon himself to revenge what happened to Williams. And he hits a line drive over Robinson's head. Robinson's playing third base. And as the ball goes into the left field corner, it's a sure double. So Dark heads into second base, but he doesn't stop. He's going to get Robinson. So Robinson catches the throw in and well in time to tag Dark out, but Dark sends Robinson sprawling. Now, both Dark and Robinson are All-American football players, so you can imagine the collision. Well, Robinson goes sprawling and the ball goes sprawling. And when Robinson gets up, he kind of whispers to Dark, "I got to get you at second base." And Herman Frank says to Dark, "You're crazy to do something like that at Ebbets Field." Actually, nothing really materializes after that. And it's interesting that years later, when Dark is accused of racist attitudes towards his Latino and Black players when managing the Giants, Robinson does come to his defense. Before I go to Jersey City in 1956, let me also just touch on the Willie Weinbaum article and what they really were highlighting in that article. As I said to you, Schuba shook Robinson's hand, and he had a picture in his house of that handshake. That picture I showed you earlier, uh, there was a little bit of a hoopla in 1996 about the 50th anniversary of that game. And Mike Schuber, uh, Schuber's son, realizes that it seems that George has been forgotten as given that handshake. And he comes across an advertisement of a white player shaking Robinson's hands using an app in an Apple commercial in 1940, in like 1940, 1996, 1997, sometime around that era. And it says, think, think, but think better. Okay, and that's the commercial. And he suddenly realizes his father should be getting a little bit of that notoriety. And then he runs across an article, a picture, excuse me, in a book Schuber had, and the picture shows a different photo of that handshake. And that Schuber decides, Mike Schuber, his son, decides that this picture should be publicized. And today, that picture has now become the seminal moment of that handshake. In 2006, Dave Anderson in the New York Times basically wrote a story called The Handshake of the Century. And here it is, a different handshake. This is from the first base side looking back at the bleachers in left field. And if you can see, Robinson's feet are actually off the ground. So he looks like he's gliding into home plate. And so if you see pictures of that handshake today, it's basically this handshake. And this is really the story that Willie Weinbaum talks about. He talks about that picture. And the reason for that is Youngstown, Ohio, Schuber's hometown, has decided to put a statue up of that handshake. And that was the focus of the CBS morning show and also Willie's story in ESPN, is that statue that's going to be put up in Youngstown, Ohio, commemorating the handshake of the century, a white teammate offering his hand to a black teammate when that black teammate hit a home run in his first game in organized baseball. So let me now finish up by kind of talking about Jackie's return to Jersey City in 1956. In 1955, Walter O'Malley, to put some pressure on the New York politicians, gets a contract with Jersey City to play 7 games in Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City in 1956, 57, 58. What he wants to do is really kind of convince New York politicians that he's willing to move out of Brooklyn. And I won't go into all the details of that. But so he decides he'll play in Jersey City. So on this cold April day, about 10 years, almost 10 years to the day, when Robinson debuted in 1946, Jackie plays in Jersey City once again. Haig is not the mayor. Bernard Berry, the known mayor, doesn't realize the significance, and you don't have nowhere near the pregame hoopla that did exist back in 1946. And only 12,000 plus fans turn out. I'm getting a phone call here. I'll wait till that ends. Okay, only 12,000 fans turn out on this cold day. And guess what? Jackie is jeered and booed. Not that surprising, because you got to realize Jersey City had a lot of New York Giant fans, and I've kind of talked a little bit about a rivalry exasperating during the 40s and the 50s. And also the Yankee fans, and they didn't have any love for the Dodgers. They've been playing them in World Series ever since 1947. So Robinson gets booed and jeered and actually makes an error during the game. And at the end of the game, almost gets into a fight with a Jersey Journal reporter. So it's not a very good beginning to the Dodgers in Jersey City. Let me kind of conclude with Robinson does say he would come back to play in Jersey City in 1957 if he is still playing. That was in August. And at the end of the season, Robinson gets traded to the New York Giants for Dick Littlefield. And interesting enough, Andy McHugh says that actually Robinson intended to retire before that trade. So I don't know what the Dodgers were doing trading him. Andy McHugh, SABR, who wrote O'Malley's biography, so he knows a lot about the Dodgers. He told me after I said that Robinson retired after he got traded, he said, no, that's not correct. And I take Andy's word for that. Now, today, to commemorate Jackie Robinson's first game in 1946, let's forget about 1956. To commemorate that, there's a statue in Journal Square in Jersey City. And I think David Krell has a little story in the Jackie book about that. And that statue is in Journal Square, and Journal Square is the transportation hub of Jersey City. So there are quite a few spectators, commuters passing through that area. So it gets quite a bit of exposure. And that commemorates that first game. The first game Jackie Robinson played in organized baseball, what was previously called organized baseball in Jersey City. So that's my presentation. It took about 25 minutes, and open up for questions and comments. Anybody want to say anything about Jackie? Doesn't necessarily have to relate to Jersey City. As I said to you earlier, I miss Jackie Robinson in baseball. He was exciting. I was a Giant fan. He was the most feared player I've ever had that played against the Giants. And he was an exciting player. Thank you.
John, I'll throw out a question, really not relating directly to your presentation, but at one comment you made in it that I'm just curious about and how you feel about it. You said early in the presentation that with shifts and so forth, Jackie Robinson would have stolen home a lot. And I'm just wondering, like in this current environment, strategically, I guess my question is, how would that have changed how he would have made decisions as to whether to steal home anyway? Because, with a shift on.
Well, if he was playing, he was at third base. That third baseman would not be playing the shortstop hole. That third baseman would be playing right on third base because he just was always threatening to steal home if he got to third. And he would disrupt pitches, and that's where the balks came into place. I don't know how many balks in his major league career did Robinson encourage or create, but it was quite a few. Whether it was first base, second base, or short or third base, he was that with those pigeon toes dancing up and down. He just drove pitches crazy. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think you did really. I was thinking about the third baseman playing off the bag. Yeah. How they probably wouldn't have picked him off anyway, but he probably would have danced 3/4 of the way down the line toward home plate.
And I don't see why some of these players don't do that today. I mean, we're having all this stuff, we're going to ban shifts. And, if you go back to some of the old time ball players, they say, well, you wouldn't shift on us because we'd hit the ball where it ain't, okay? Where the fielders aren't. And yet, I watched a couple of games last night, and shortstop is third baseman is practically playing on top of second base. The shortstop is out in right field, and the batter is not even trying to hit outside pitches to right left field. To me, it's.
Well, I've got a daughter-in-law that doesn't even hardly follow baseball, and my son took her. When they were dating, he took her to a Nationals game, and she immediately spotted that this third baseman was playing over where the shortstop usually played, and nobody was at third base with a runner on second. Even she, who didn't really follow baseball that closely, said, "Why doesn't the guy on second go up to third?"
Yeah.
But, well, it was a good presentation.
Well, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Are you going to do any more on Jackie Robinson? I know you've devoted a lot of research to him in the past.
I'm not sure. I mean, there's been a lot of work done. I just saw that, a few years ago, there was stuff about that first game in Jersey City, but it really wasn't that well publicized. So that's why I decided to kind of do something at the 9 conference. And then when Bill asked for articles, follow that up. And I didn't realize this was the 75th anniversary of that game. That's why you had the CBS morning show and also Willie Weinbaum's article on the Undefeated, which is the platform, ESPN's platform for culture, race, and sports. And he put that on the Undefeated. There's also a video that the ESPN crew goes to Youngstown to get the reaction of the Youngstown folks with this statue coming up. And I actually do have Willie put a picture of the statue in his article, and so that over you can see that. That's what the statue is going to look like. And you see it's Schubert shaking Robinson's hand, Robinson with a big smile. And in the pictures I showed you, Robinson has a big smile on his face also. It must have been quite a relief for Jackie to hit that home run because there was a lot of pressure on him. It was his first game. And, I don't think we all realized the pressure that was on that individual in that first game to deliver. And he probably struggled during spring training. I did read that he hadn't hit any home runs in spring training, but he probably struggled with the weight of the moment on him.
How many times did you see Jackie Robinson play in person, roughly? Or did you?
Well, I don't know. Probably 10 to 20 times. He played, I always put on my SABR bio, the best game I ever saw was in Jersey City when Johnny Antonelli shut out the Dodgers 1-0. Robinson played in that game. So he also played in the 57 game. Giants won that 8-5 with Hank Sauer hitting a 3-run home run to win it in the 9th. And then I saw the last Giant Dodger game in Ebbets Field. Robinson had retired by then, but saw maybe 10 to 20 is a little bit of an exaggeration. But I saw him play, and of course, then you'd watch WOR, the Dodger station in New York all the time, and so they televised so many games, so I saw him play in person, but I also saw him play a lot on television.
Yeah, oh yeah, I did too, on television.
Yeah.
I never saw him play in person.
By the way, in that 1956 game, I told you Antonelli shut out the Dodgers, Newton pitched. And years later, I'm a Giant fan and a member of a Giants Historical Association, the Preservation Society in New York City, and they would have a breakfast. The Giants would bring the trophy, World Series trophy in New York in 2010, and the Giants actually splurged for a breakfast for us members of these organizations. And in 2010, they gave us the Willie Mays biography, and Willie was there. And they had Willie sign our biographies, and I walked up to get my biography signed. I mentioned to Mays, I says, Willie, you hit a lot of home runs, but I'll never forget the one you hit in Jersey City to give Antonelli that 1-0 victory. Mays never looked up. He just said, offer Don Newcomb. So I always found that as kind of amusing that he remembered at least that home run. Yeah. Mays was the best player I ever saw. Robinson was the most exciting player I ever saw. Mays probably second in terms of excitement.
Anybody else for Dr. John? I'm going to assume next year being the 75th anniversary of the him making the Dodgers roster, that there will likely be a big focus on Jackie either at the Malloy conference and or at the convention in Baltimore.
Yeah, that will be that's going to be a major anniversary. I mean, 75th in minor league ball now. Next year, the 75th in major league.
Majors. Yep. So for those of you guys who were late, just wanted to let you know, if you didn't hear, there's going to be a joint minor league game. Information should be going out, at least to save the date, in the next couple days. It's going to be the Baltimore chapter, the Philadelphia chapter primarily, also Harrisburg and Williamsport, North Jersey are involved. AAA game September 4th in Scranton. It's actually a doubleheader, Buffalo at Scranton. September 4th, it's Labor Day weekend, so you can make a weekend out of it, stay up there, go to Cooperstown, whatever. And then the Orioles game for our chapter this year is going to be September 25th against Texas at Camden Yards. Other than that, don't forget about the Summer of SABR, sign up. The chapter gets credit wherever you are listed as your primary. Once you sign up, that chapter gets credit, and there's actually chapters vying for winning a free party, essentially, from SABR headquarters in Arizona. We are also now the fourth largest chapter in the United States. Obviously, only about we're number 4.
Yeah.
Obviously, only about a third to half of our members on our roster list Baltimore as our primary, because we have so many from DC, Philadelphia, other chapters sitting on our roster too. But DC and Casey Stengel, New York City, are like 1 and 2. They keep switching positions back and forth. Boston is 3, and we're 4. We have over 400 members on our roster. So,
Peter, let me ask you a question. If I'm registered for 50th for the summer, but my registration was put in by SABR, the headquarters, because I've made a contribution. I should count, but I'm not sure if they are.
You should count. Reach out to Chanel and make sure you're counted for our chapter, especially since you're a board member.
Yeah, I will do that because I am registered. And
I did too.
we have others who have contributed who have got registration to.
Yeah,
I'll do
ask
that.
about that. Maybe ask her to send an email to all the people who are freebies to make sure they're counted on the appropriate home chapter.
Okay.
And for those of you, I don't know if anybody on here has contributed to the forthcoming Baltimore book on baseball. I've seen a proof of it in PDF form. It will likely be printed by the end of the summer. Those of us who contributed an article or two will get a free copy, and then it'll be available for purchase. And then hopefully both the Orioles team store and the Babe Ruth Museum will carry it, physical copies.
Do I count for making that list? I didn't actually write an article, but I made the list of games.
Reach out to Mr. Nowlin. Let him ask.
Now, oh, okay. Phil Nowlin, yeah, I know.
Yep.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out even long before the convention to satisfy people's thirst and interest in Baltimore baseball, and obviously it'll be out for pre-Christmas and everything for anybody who wants to pick it up for.
It reminded me something of that Jackie book, in a sense that I kind of know a bit about the Orioles since I moved here in '84. But there were so many things in that book, even some time '84 on, that I haven't was forgotten about or wasn't aware of. That's so interesting. When you get when you get a whole bunch of articles from a diverse group of people, they have certain interests that not necessarily parallel yours, but really is illuminating when you see all this stuff together.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward. I didn't want to read the whole PDF now because it's several hundred pages. So I'm looking forward to getting the actual physical copy. A lot of our home BBRC members contributed, but many other people from across the country who have either Maryland roots or interests in Baltimore baseball. And primarily those of you who know David Stinson, who's on our board, he did a lot of the articles on the old ballparks. Basically, they did one on every ballpark that the Orioles or Negro Leagues or any professional team played at over the years. And then all the historic games going back to the 1800s. So I'm really looking forward to it. They're trying to still figure out the cover and make edits and that kind of stuff. But you should hear more about it hopefully by the end of the summer.
Speaking of publications, I guess, since this is I thought I'd just like to ask the question. I know we've all, or at least many people have experienced problems with Postal Service, but I am yet to receive my copy of the most recent Baseball Research Journal. Has anybody else had that problem?
I haven't got mine either.
I got mine.
Well, the thing is, like the one last fall, the last one that came out, I just decided to wait, and believe it or not, I got it about a month ago. I mean, it showed up in perfect condition in my mailbox about a month ago. This is the one that was back in the issue before Christmas, I think.
Yeah, if you don't get it, Francis, I moved, even though I changed my address in SABR. I let Chanel know I didn't get it within a 2-week period, and she sent another one. So technically there's 2 out there headed in my direction. So
Well,
just
who is the person in SABR to contact about that? I mean, I didn't think Cecilia Tan, as editor, I thought once she turned it in, it's kind of out of her hand. And
Chanel Zapata.
She's the one.
Yeah, the one who took over for Deb Jane.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking it may show up every day when the mail comes. I think, well, maybe it's in there, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if I hadn't asked in any other forum whether people had received it or not. But I think a lot of
you're not the only one who it's late, believe me. So
okay.
Jeff, what's on the cover of that?
I'm sorry, John.
I was curious to asking Jeff, what was on the cover of the most recent?
It was Babe Ruth's picture.
I'll get it in a second. I have it up in the room here.
Yes, Babe Ruth, a facial picture of Babe Ruth.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think so. Yeah, Jeff will be back in a minute, but I'm pretty sure.
All right, yeah, I didn't get that.
There it is.
And I'm in the same postal area as Jeff, so I'm surprised.
You haven't gotten it, John?
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got a hunch. I guess they mail it, bulk mail or something.
I think I just got it maybe a week ago. So
Oh,
it wasn't too
really?
long ago. Yeah.
Well, maybe mine will come. That's what I keep thinking. It's probably sitting in some post office somewhere.
So that's where we are, guys. I know next month, well, we still have the Baltimore Babble at the end of June. And then next month, we have a gentleman who's a SABR member from Sacramento who's going to talk to us about baseball tickets in the first Wednesday of the month. And then our buddy Adam from Bowie Bay Sox is going to talk to us at the Called Shot Lunch in July. So, and they're a pretty damn hot team right now, so that should be interesting.
By the way, Peter, that guy from the guy we had from the Cal Ripken
Aberdeen,
he was fantastic. That was great. I learned so much about minor league ball and what's going on with minor league ball from him.
Aberdeen would really like to be involved when we get closer to the convention, have a booth, that kind of thing. And he's a great guy. I'm now Facebook friends with him, so we would like to stay in touch and keep a good relationship with the Ironbirds and Ripken baseball, obviously. So
he was very open too. I was surprised. He said that there are some major league owners who really are trying to do away with all minor league baseball.
Yeah,
and he kind of went, that's scary.
There's a lot of stuff going around now about not providing housing for the minor leaguers. Not just the Orioles, but all over. Some teams, like I think Houston's paying for everything. Some teams the players are on their own. for finding housing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I know the independent leagues, they're so on their own, because there's people here in York used to take in some of the York players.
Yeah.
They would live with families.
Well, it started, they weren't allowed to do that because of Corona through May, I
Okay.
think. So that was the problem. But then some of the teams are letting them on their own after May. I'm not sure where the Orioles stand, but it seems to be a lot of talk on Facebook about it.
So it seems like minor league baseball is still getting squeezed even after this realignment.
Yeah.
In fact, they said some of the Bowie players were talking about sleeping in their cars.
Wow.
So you do know something about the Oriole players, right? 'Cause
Well,
the
yeah,
Bowies have one.
that was just somebody mentioning that on Facebook. I mean, it wasn't a link to an article or anything. So it's just
Okay.
one person saying that.
Yeah, but it's probably true.
Well, I think it would be short-sighted on the part of the major league teams, though, because after all, it may be a small percentage, but some of these guys are their future talent. You know, and if they don't develop them, then they're going to suffer later on.
Let me ask you a question. I see you guys are all fans. What do you think about this ruling about and no use of any kind of sunscreen and stuff for pitchers? And then you got this reaction from Tyler Glass now.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And apparently they're furious because they didn't do this in the off season, and they just do this out in the middle of the season.
But it's always been a rule. So.
But it's never been enforced.
Well, yeah, but
And that's
Well, I feel that, you know, I heard a discussion a day or two ago that made me think too, you know, is Major League Baseball really that sincere in catching them? If so, why do they announce ahead of time they're going to start doing it? I mean, it's like a PR thing a little bit.
I think I heard that same discussion.
Yeah. It was on one of those shows.
well, Pete Alonso for the Mets says he wants to let the pitchers keep doing it so he doesn't get hit by a wild pitch.
Yeah.
That's what the fear is, that the pitchers, this helps them control the ball and they're liable to be wilder. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really going to be a strange statistical year. The lowest batting average since '68
Right.
for all the majors, but they're still hitting the home runs.
I think it's kind of a dual problem. I think one is maybe what they're putting on the ball, but the other is the way the hitters and the philosophy of hitting has changed
Yes.
to where the batting averages were going to go way down, you know, because the home runs were going to go up. And I feel like it's not the entire problem, you know, solving the pitching issue. You know, that's just my opinion, but that's the way, you know, I don't think it's a simple thing.
I think the actions baseball is taking these days is just, it's not going to really have that major an impact on anything. And I'm not sure, it just is causing more and more issues. And I'm afraid that this next collective bargaining, by the way, one of the, I think the last of this summer series is going to be on what can we expect in the next player negotiations with baseball. I'm looking forward to that one, but I think that's going to be that could turn out to really be a big mess.
Oh yeah.
Well, if I were a chemist, I'd be trying to come up with an undetectable pitching substance that these pitchers
Right.
could be, and he'd be making $1 million because they're not going to quit altogether.
Well, maybe you should start going down in your basement and we'll start working on that for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do as soon as we get off this call. Of course, I'll get out my old high school chemistry book, and it won't tell.
Well, you could do what Ray Milland did. Remember that movie?
Oh yeah, slippery
Spring.
Avoided the pitch.
It repels wood.
Maybe that movie was before its time.
All right, guys. Well,
Okay.
We did good.
Well, I'll watch most of the presentation on the recording since I got messed up with my internet, so I missed most of it. But I'll
It's
watch the
okay.
recording.
We recorded it.
Yep.
And obviously, should get another email in the next week or two. I have to reach out and get some people signed up for September. I will tell you that the board, and John knows this, we agreed to do Zooms exclusively through September and then start, depending on how the city and state and everybody feels, maybe start doing some in-person things after that. Of course, we'll have our minor league and major league game both in September too. So
Are we ever going back to the Babe Ruth Museum?
yeah, well, first of all, if we're probably, and this is just me talking, so don't take it as gospel,
Yeah.
gonna do like a combination Zoom with in person. So like if I went to the museum, I could have a computer down there and have our speaker virtual. And we can, some of us can eat and stuff in person. The museum is upgrading its Wi-Fi and stuff over the next couple weeks. So hopefully it'll be much better. So that way we can, even from the basement.
I kind of like that. I might even come down to do it in person, even though it is on Zoom. I miss coming down there.
Yeah. So we'll, as soon as I think the mask mandate looks like it's going to be lifted, not just in Maryland, but I just read Baltimore City, July 1st. So probably by the fall, we'll be able to at least go back to the museum for those of us who like to go down during the day. And then also, Peeps at the Peep, they're open now, but I don't know if Bruce or anybody's actually gone in person on Monday nights. Or excuse me, first Wednesday.
I think all the board members agree that we need to have in-person meetings, but that the Zoom meetings do add a certain dimension, and it's be a smart issue to have both. But
and I can tell you,
still have in-person meetings.
I can tell you, we have a couple potentially big names, Oriole broadcasters and stuff that would like to present and speak to the group, but after the season's over. Jeff Arnold and possibly Melanie Newman, who would talk to us during the off season. Just, once their schedule will allow it and all that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely keep Zoom as an aspect of this. So it won't go away. We won't just cut it off and go back to all person. That's for sure.
Of course, I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, we want people like Francis and, those of you guys who are on regularly. We get Thomas Babluski out from Toledo and, guys across the country that like to join in. So, we're pretty active. SABR HQ is happy with our chapter for being only 6 years old this month. That we've come a long way, and we'll be hosting a convention and all that kind of stuff. So now if our local team could just improve a little bit this year, I'd be really happy.
Francis, are you having any in-person meetings in Carolina these days?
Not this, well, no, the SABR group, which only meets about every 2 months, is still Zoom.
Okay.
But actually next week I'm in a local sports club, and we're going to have an outdoor meeting next week, which is the first one we've had since COVID came on the scene. And but yeah, SABR is, of course, our chapter down here, as I've probably said before, is more doesn't meet nearly as frequently as your group does. I say your group, I almost feel part of it now. I do, but it doesn't meet nearly as often, and the discussions usually relate exclusively almost to minor leagues and so forth. The number of attendees in a Zoom meeting is usually similar to this one, not and so I get a lot of fulfillment out of these meetings that I've joined with your chapter and others around the country. And the one in North Carolina is still active, and Chris Dial is really the one who arranges most of it. Some of you may know him. He's a former SABR director near Raleigh.
I've participated in a couple of those Carolina things. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. And as I said, the minor league focus is natural in this area because that's what we basically have, our minor league teams. And of course, as I've said before in humor, I'm a major league guy. No, I follow the minors, but I follow the majors more.
Let you guys know, we had, when Janet Marie was on earlier this month, that was the biggest Zoom crowd we ever had. We had probably over 50 people on at one point. Obviously, she's a big name, and being an EVP of the Dodgers and everything, and her connections to the Orioles and Camden Yards is part of her legacy. But that was a lot of fun, and she was grateful, and she sent me a personal thank you afterwards. And even though she was in Massachusetts doing it from Polar Park, she's still slated tentatively to be one of the speakers up next summer. So. All right. Well, Dr. John and everyone, thank you. You guys know how to reach me if you need anything.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Be on the lookout for a save the date about the minor league game soon. And I have no information on the website. Bruce is handling that. We hired outside people to do it, so that's out of my hands. But other than that, we're chugging along, and can't believe it's mid-June. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody have a good afternoon. We'll see you soon.
Take care now. Thank you.
Good presentation, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.